The Monas Hieroglyphica, Dee's clever book with over 100 interrelated puzzles. Here's a translation of the title page of John Dee's Monas Hieroglyphica, or Sacred Symbol of Oneness, dedicated to Maximilian, the most wise king of the Romans, Bohemia, and Hungary. The text, written on the flowing ribbons, contains the cryptic sentence, "Mercurius, when made perfect by a sharp, stable point, becomes the parent and king of all the planets." In the lower foundation is a quote from Genesis, verse 27, "May God give you of the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth." On the upper entablature, Dee admonishes, "He who does not understand should either be silent or learn." Here's the actual title page in Latin. It's chock full of clues. When I first studied the title page, I immediately said, "Something's wrong here. Something's out of place." Now, I'm not saying Dee's 450-year-old illustration is wrong, but I'm saying that he intentionally made something amiss to give a graphical clue. Can you guess what I'm referring to? While you're thinking about it, I'll point out some specific clues. Above the central Monas symbol, in the egg, are two twin-footed Mercuries pointing their spears at the aperture in the emblem. A crustacean between them represents Dee himself, whose sign was Cancer the crab. At the bottom is a lion's head representing King Maximilian, whose sign was Leo the lion. To the left and right are Aries the ram and Taurus the bull, holding grapevines which represent the fatness of the earth. On the columns, the dew of heaven is raining down from the sun and the moon into collecting pans. On the upper capitals of the columns are the words fire and air, and on the lower pedestals are circular depictions of water and earth. To more easily see what I claim is amiss, I have eliminated all of Dee's typesetting here. Note that most of the architectural features are made from straight lines and right angles. At the bottom is a sturdy foundation, then pedestals with columns on them, and then a horizontal entablature with two planted urns, and the dome is filled with stars, like the dome of heaven. In contrast, everything in the central emblem is curvy and flowing. To me, the emblem seems heavy, like it is sunk too low on the page. Rather than being pinched by the pedestals below, it appears that it should rise up and fit into the open theater between the columns. Now the ribbons feel much airier, and the central Monas symbol feels more prominent. Here are the two versions, side by side. I interpret this as Dee's way of hinting that he wants the reader to think about graphically moving pieces of other illustrations in his book, in order to solve other puzzles. At the beginning of his book, Dee comes right out and informs the reader that he is using various secret code techniques, like gematria, notericon, and ziruf. Gematria is when certain letters represent certain numbers. It's a number code. Notericon is when the first letters of a phrase combine to spell another word, sort of like an acronym. And ziruf is when letters are all jumbled up, form different words, like the jumble in the newspaper. Dee invented this graphical device, the Monas symbol, to help explain his cosmology. What does it look like to you? Many people see it as a squatting stick figure with horns, outstretched arms, and one eye. One witty observer thought that it looked like the symbol for a unisex bathroom. Dee illustrates the four parts of the Monas symbol: the moon half circle, the sun circle, the cross of the elements, and down below is the zodiacal sign of Aries. Let's take a quick look at Dee's text. Here are the four parts: moon, sun, elements, and Aries. Incidentally, I will not be reviewing all of Dee's clues here, but enough so you will be able to understand what I call the hidden blueprint of the tower. The first two of Dee's 24 theorems sound very geometrical. A straight line and a circle are the first representations of things in nature and the bringing forth of light. A circle cannot be made without a line, and a line cannot be made without a point. Thus, things came into being by way of the point. In Theorem 3, Dee discusses the central point in the sun circle. Theorem 4 says that the moon emulates the sun, and that during a full moon they appear to be the same size. Indeed, from our Earth, our moon and sun do actually appear to be the same size. They each subtend an angle of about 1/2 of a degree. And in Theorem 5, Dee tells us that the light of the philosophers was made the day the moon and the sun were joined. This idea of two tangent circles is a huge theme for D, and I assert it's the basic design plan of the tower. In Theorem 8, D equates the Pythagorean tetractys, or 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10, with the x, the Roman numeral for 10, the equilateral cross, and he also equates it with the cross he uses for the monas symbol, which is I call the offset cross. These representations of the cross have the same virtue to D because they are all made from two lines of equal length. In Theorem 16, D breaks the x into two v's. He claims that the early Romans used the v to represent 5 because two of them make an x, or 10. He also breaks the x into two l's, or the Roman numeral for 50. He says the L embraces the strength of the V and the X, as 5 times 10 is 50. In Theorem 11, he writes that the Aries symbol, the two half circles at the bottom of the monas symbol, signifies the place of the spring equinox, the first of Aries, when there are exactly 12 hours of light and 12 hours of darkness, totaling 24 hours. We'll see that 12 and 24 are key numbers in D's cosmology. D even divides his book into 24 theorems, and in Theorem 24 he makes numerous references to the number 24. He ends his book, Amen, says the fourth letter, followed by a Greek delta, an equilateral triangle. This is D's code for himself, which, like the letter D, is the fourth Latin letter. It's the fourth Latin letter and also the fourth Greek letter. In Theorem 17, D envisions the cross 5 creative ways. First, as 4 V's, or the Roman numeral for 5, which make 20. 4 L's, or the Roman numeral for 50, which makes 200. X, he says, is the 21st letter of the Latin alphabet. And a cross is one symbol, so it can also represent 1. D then sums these results and arrives at the number 252. He also adds that 252 can be derived from our premises in 2 other ways, but he doesn't explain them. He also wants the reader to think about how an X can separate into 2 L's or 2 V's, because then a lux, a light, will appear. From various parts of the monas symbol, D makes the planetary symbols for Mercury, Venus, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, the Moon, and the Sun. He arranges them in various ways. He provides a precise geometrical construction for his whole symbol, and he also shows how to use it a little bit thicker if it was going to be used on a ring or a seal, or for an ornament. The main theme of the monas is the union of opposites. D writes, whatever is in the universe possesses order, agreement, and similar form with something else. D didn't invent the idea of the union of opposites by any means. The ancient Chinese expressed it in their yin-yang symbol. The Romans expressed it in their two-headed god Janus, from which we get the month January. One head looks back on the old year, and the other one looks ahead to the new. In medieval days, they expressed the union of opposites as the Ouroboros, a serpent biting its own tail, making a circle. The alchemists expressed it as fire, an upright triangle, and water, a downward-pointing triangle, uniting in a 6-pointed star or hexagram. They called the union of opposites coincidentia oppositorum. Artists express the union of opposites subtly in their paintings. Alan Rothenberg writes that Mona Lisa's smile has been described as both good and wicked, as well as both compassionate and cruel. Even poets express the union of opposites. Wallace Stevens writes, among 20 snowy mountains, the only moving thing was the eye of a blackbird. Among the implied opposites in this simple sentence are black and white, small and large, one, many, moving still, non-living, and living, round, angular. There's many opposites, all in one little word picture. Tom Monahan, from Providence, is a creative consultant to large corporations. To spark creativity, he recommends 180-degree thinking, directing your thought process in the exact opposite direction of where conventional wisdom would suggest it goes. If conventional wisdom says soft, think hard. If it says warm, think cold. He calls it tenephrid, way to ideate. Tenephrod is different spelled backwards. D expresses the union of opposites as the sun and the moon, shown here on two opposing columns. They are the same size, and he joins them. The two circles might be seen as tangent or overlapping, like I've shown in the middle here. But they are in a constant state of joining, which he calls conjunctio, and splitting, which he calls separatio. The union of opposites can be seen in D's "thus the world was created" chart. The solary region, containing fire and air, is opposite the lunary region. Here they are marked out here. The lunary region includes water and earth, in what D calls this whole thing, the lunary and solary, is a earthly marriage between the two. But this whole earthly realm has its opposite in the heavenly realm, or the above realm, or what he calls the supercelestial realm. As above, so below. D also presents a comparison of two quaternaries. The Pythagorean quaternary at the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, multiplies to 24, sums to 10, and sums to 30 if you sum the various combinations of its parts separately. D's very own artificial or artful quaternary, which is down at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 2, multiplies to 12, sums to 8, and its various parts sum to 24. Hey, here are those numbers 12 and 24 again. D writes, "Our numbers have such dignity that to violate their laws would be a sin against the wisdom of nature. Indeed, these laws announce with authority the certain and fixed limits that nature wants to teach us in the examination of its greatest mysteries." What are these laws and fixed limits he's referring to? Well, that quote is on the left here, and the chart has a number of clues in it, but way down at the bottom of the chart, on the bottom right, is what D calls the magistral or master number. It's that number 252 again. And next to it are the words lipidification and fermentation. They suggest that D considers it to be the philosopher's stone of number. I realized that 252 was the key D provided to unlocking the secret of the Monas Hieroglyphica. And understanding the Monas Hieroglyphica was the key to understanding the tower. There was only one problem. For the past few centuries, no one's been able to explain what's so important about 252. Fortunately, I had at my fingertips a tool which none of these previous researchers had. I Googled 252. And guess who popped up in cyberspace? Buckminster Fuller. Bucky's quote here seems quite confusing, but at the very end he refers to a fifth frequency shell of 252 spheres. What's this all about?